This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
That one Raila Odinga left Kenyans with was based off what you do today and looking deeper into the future. And this is what he said. Don't be afraid of dying. Even if you die and go to hell, there's nothing to worry about. Why? Because you will find your friends there. What do you think Raila meant to that statement?
Come again, please.
Don't be afraid of dying. Even if you die and go to hell, there's nothing to worry about. You'll find many of your friends there.
I would think of it as you will find your friends there. Don't be afraid of dying. Even if you go to hell, you'll find your friends there. Who you associate with, you will always be able to meet them wherever it is, if it is the hell bit. And if you're doing right, do right. If you're doing wrong, do wrong. And at the end of it, the consequences, let the chips fall where they may. That's my take on it.
Terry, how would you interpret it?
I think I'll also take it in the same direction and just mention the way they say birds of the same feather fly together. So it seems like when you do the same things together, you'll always tend to be in the same space together. Yeah.
You're even in death.
We do the same things.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay. 16 days of activism against gender-based violence came into effect essentially yesterday. And that, let's start again, gender-based violence. But in this specific, we're talking about violence against women and girls. But that we keep saying the needle should have moved. I think it was 2024, was it 2026, where we said that gender-based violence should have ended completely. This is what we're saying. But if I see what I see on X, that horrific story of a young girl in Mombasa who was defiled in the manner in which she was, and that it's almost become the norm, then I'm wondering if the needle is moving at all. Javan?
Thank you. It is concerning. And the challenge is we live in our own cocoons. And so long as you are insulated against it, you will never know about it. I will give you data. Within Nairobi County on its own, last year we had about 24,000 and change number of survivors seen in our facilities. That is 24,000 and a couple of hundreds. If you take the number 24,000, divide it by 365, I think you have about 67 or thereabouts per day. And if you go further and do a deeper dive, divide that by 24. You have about 3 people violated every single hour within Nairobi. Now, these 3 could be data. These 3 could be strangers. In media, you could report about it. But this, even one, that is the worst possible day of that individual's life. And we're having the numbers increasing. And these are just the numbers that are reported, the tip of the iceberg. Today is actually the beginning of the international, the 16 days of activism against GBV. Today is the International Day for Elimination of Violence against Women and Girls. And the days will be 16 from today up to the 10th of December, which is the International Human Rights Day. Now, when we talk about the violence is real, violence is happening, and it only comes to light when someone speaks about it. It's unfortunate that within the last week or so, there is a prominent Kenyan whose daughter was being violated in their house, intimate partner violence, and he spoke about it. The fact that he spoke about it brought it to light. And we are also pushing towards the 16 days is an opportunity for us to speak about things that people don't want to speak about. People are too comfortable. We need to have them not very comfortable. We need everyone to know that GBV happens. It is not a private thing. And right now, society is moving online. So the GBV that is there, the systems that are there, the patriarchal systems, when you talk about the child being defiled, it has been happening. And the fact of the matter is, some of these cases are dealt with hush-hush. We do not want to spoil the family's name. If it is in the house, the child has been violated, we do not want to talk about it. Itaharibu jina. We do not want to speak. Sometimes they are sorted out. Someone is given a chicken, a goat, a tray of eggs, or they're just discussed somewhere, hush, hush, and it is ended. We need this to stop. The law is very clear about it. You cannot discuss and wish away gender-based violence. It is a crime, and it should be prosecuted.
And in this, the build-up of these 2 weeks
Yes.
that are coming, when you look at the elimination of violence, and I agree with you, violence takes different shapes and forms,
Yes.
depending on society, the groupings, many factors. What really are we hoping to achieve? Because we've had instances before where we had days of activism, days of pronouncing ourselves against a certain move, the Me Too effect, all those things come into play.
Yes.
But what could we say that should we be successful in these coming 2 weeks? This is what we are looking to yield, achieve, and work on progressively to eliminate exactly what you say, violence, because I opine is the right of every human being to exist as they should within a very peaceful, coexisting society and community. And where there are differences, they should be resolved amicably.
True.
So what are we looking to achieve?
The 16 days of activism is an opportunity for us to bring to light things that are usually hidden. We want to amplify the work that we're doing. When you talk about the 16 days of activism, please note that we actually have 365 days of action. We work with the survivors every single day. We amplify, we listen to the survivor stories, we give them the care that is needed, but the public does not know what is happening. If you wink at a beautiful woman in a darkened room, she will never know. We are working in darkness where with reference to the public. So what happens is, you need to know what is happening. The survivors need to know the care that is available. The survivors need to know where you can actually go for help, what to do, where to report it. And we're having a situation where some people have normalized violence. Where they grew up, violence was normal. And maybe they know no better. They grew up in a situation where their mother was being beaten, their sisters are being beaten, and they think physical violence is normal. But we know it is not. It is very wrong. During the 16 days of activism, we try to also raise this awareness. Let the public know when we tell you 16 days from today up to the 10th, we are sharing what we do. We are going to the communities. We are having road shows. We are having panel discussions. We are having candlelit vigils. We are having awareness raising sessions. We even have a theater group that was intent on staging a play specifically about GBV. So when we focus all our attention on explaining what we're doing and how it is helping every single person, then that's what the 16 days are about.
As a person who is in that space of trying to care, in a manner of speaking, the gender inclusion, what are some of the things that qualify because to be gender-based or to be violence within that space of gender? Because sometimes people misconstrue, what could be normal cultural practice,
Yes.
Against what is infamously not correct. So what qualifies?
So thank you so much. I just want to start by mentioning, like, this year theme, we are talking about uniting to end digital violence against all women and girls. And when you're looking at that, there's the key word there that is unite, meaning that collectively we have a responsibility. So looking at how collectively we need to work together, there's that aspect coming to your question on what is normal and what is not normal. Let's go back. What is normal? It should be something that does not affect anybody or hinder somebody from enjoying their human right. So culturally might be perceived right, but in real sense, this thing is affecting somebody's enjoyment of their human right. So how do we draw a line by saying that we have normalized? He has spoke about normalizing GBV, just looking from the way you are socialized, from the communities that we come from, we have normalized that. But is it really normal? Are people suffering as a result of cultural norms that have normalized? So in that perspective, anything that harms a person and hinders them from enjoying their human right, that is violence. And it is associated with your gender. It goes to that perspective. So I cannot stand here and say, when you slap somebody, that is not violence, because it was just one slap. How has that affected a person? And yes, we have different forms of gender-based violence, spanning from physical abuse, we have the sexual abuse, and now we have the online sexual abuse, that this year we are focusing a lot on bringing it online and creating awareness so that people see the connection of online and offline gender-based violence.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You see, Terry, when we talk about gender-based violence, as has been established, is victims tend to be quiet, not speak, because first of all, there is stereotype around it. Many feel shameful to come out and talk about it, but in staying quiet, they have continued to be abused even more, because then you give power to the person who has abused you before. Then you look at the communities that we belong to, like he's spoken in terms of people sit under a tree, they discuss. There's this issue that happened, I think it is part of the northern part of this young girl, and I remember the discussion on this girl was abused to a point that she died simply because she had said no to an elderly person marrying them, and we know where that ended. Prosecution is happening. But how then do we have a conversation where victims know that there is power in speaking, that victims know where to go? Like you say, they know where to go, but if you go to a police station, you're again subjected to relive the experience again, because you're told, explain to us how it happened.
Yeah.
You know, so how do we handle that such that people know what they need to do, and also that there is power in speaking?
Yeah, thank you so much. So he had already summarized on the issues of awareness creation. And I'll just say, being a gender specialist, we are always guided by our gender equality framework that we work with in care, and most gender specialists will relate to this, whereby you need to build the agency, change relation, and transform structures. So having these three angles is, first of all, looking at ensuring that the voice is there. Yeah. And in this case, you need to bring a community whereby people understand that this thing is not normal first. You agree there's a problem. GBV is not a normal issue. So from that, how do we change relation in a patriarchy society whereby people support each others? And then transforming structures, coming in with laws and policies, and ensuring that these laws and policies are being implemented. That is the biggest challenge that we have in Kenya. Very beautiful laws, but they're not being implemented. So how do we ensure that? And then bringing in the survivors to know that once I speak out, I'm not going to suffer more abuses because of speaking out my lived reality, what I've gone through. So ensuring that there's that basis, and key thing, building the agents, support capacity of the duty bearers, the lawmakers, the enforcers, and so on, so that when I walk in that police station, I'm not going to be victimized anymore, but I'm going to be heard as a survivor, and I'm going to be believed. So the survivor-centered approach is very key, and that is something that we're trying to bring out here, so that people can learn and say, believing a survivor is the first thing. Number two, before it's substantiated, what support do we have for them? I might have suffered violence maybe 10 years ago. I decided to come and speak today. Don't question me. Why didn't I speak those 10 years ago? You don't know what made me not to speak. Believe in me and offer me the necessary support. So the key thing is, we need to challenge those harmful social structures that we have, that when a survivor comes out, they will get the support. Because most people don't want to come out because of that fear. They're afraid of being re-victimized again, so they don't come out. How do we make sure that it's safe for them to come out, speak, and get the necessary supports that we have? And another thing that always makes it hard, I talked about changing structures, when the perpetrators are not held accountable. Yeah, so you are fighting against somebody who is walking out freely, who is continuing to do the same thing, and as a human nature, I come out and speak out. What will that person say about me? Maybe they're in a position of power. how is that going to go on for me? So the key thing, we really have to touch this from, say, different dimension. And I think, as she put at the beginning, the needle is it moving. Yeah, there's a real problem because we have been speaking year in, year out. How do we move this needle to the right so that it's safe for everyone to thrive in? Yeah.
Okay, so there's a specific focus this year on online abuse. And when we talk about dealing with gender-based violence, and if we're focusing on women and girls, if we can't even say the word, then the likelihood of us being able to fight the thing reduces significantly. If we hear reports, as we hear and read transcripts of things that people have gone through for certain things, and we say things like alimfanyia vibaya, or we say things like he messed around with her, we can't even call it what it is. We seem to think that we can take away from the severity of the situation by calling it something that it is not. People are being defiled. People are being raped. People are being torn apart, literally, as terrible as it sounds. But that's what's happening.
Yes.
So does how we deal with it, with the words that we speak, contribute to how we then solve the problem later? So that's part one of the question. But if we're dealing with online violence, what does that look like? How do we say that this is online abuse or this is not? What does that look like? Because the other kind of abuse and defilement is very clear. We know what that looks like. What does it look like when it's online?
Thank you very much for that. In terms of dealing with the issue as it is, we are forever hesitant to stir the waters, I would say. And when you talk about alimfanyia vibaya, when you talk about calling it something else, it's good to call a spade a spade. And it's also good to be able to speak about what is happening. I'd like to backtrack slightly and go back to the police element that you picked up. Our police are forever receiving a bashing, left day in, day out. But when it comes to gender-based violence, I want to stand with them for once. The police have gender desks that are actually working. They have gender officers that are trained in trauma-informed, even interviewing of the survivors. So they are there. They are not as many as we would want to have, but they are there. They are available. They can do that. So back to the question that Ndu has asked. When people are not talking about it, silence does not empower the victim. Silence means the victim is still going to suffer in silence and even be embarrassed about speaking up. And when we have silence being encouraged and people not talking about it and even in hush-hush, it simply means that we are empowering the perpetrators because they know that they'll keep on doing whatever they're doing and there are no consequences. Silence means the survivor will still continue suffering. And when you talk about online violence, we might think of technology-facilitated gender-based violence as a totally different animal, but it is simply what has been happening online, offline, the rape, the defilements, the physical violence, the stalking, the harassment that has been there all along, that is just moving on to a new platform. And the bad thing about it is the anonymity that is there online, the geographical distribution of it. The internet never forgets. So when you talk about digital violence, it is violence that is committed, that is promoted or even enhanced by IT structures. So it is your phone, you have it on you. It could come in the form of sharing, non-consensual sharing of intimate images or other image sharing, image-based abuse. We have things like sextortion. We have deepfakes. We have impersonation. We have stalking. When people talk about mapenzi imenoga, to the extent that your better half or your worse half in this case is actually stalking you. They have an app on your phone that is tracking every single step you make. They are ensuring that they can even listen to your phone calls. So we have it there. We have cyber harassment. We have all these issues that are happening online. And the challenge becomes, right now, we have moved online. Whether it is love, online dating, whether it is education, when you come to business, or even jobs, people are working online. And when you're being stalked, you're being harassed, and all these things are happening, then it automatically means that this individual might not be able to do these things very comfortably, and they might end up withdrawing from whatever it is that they're doing.
Sticking with the online violence,
Yes.
One would argue that this is happening to adults because you don't expect the minors to be on these social platforms by law. Correct? That's the position.
I beg to differ, but continue.
But no, if all the social controls and legal controls are in play, we don't expect our minors to be on these social platforms. So looking at the online violence, one might opine that why not switch off? If you're being, trolled on whichever platform, I don't need to mention any, if somebody is talking you, why not switch off? Why not take the responsibility before it escalates to levels where it becomes a psychological issue for you as a person where you need to seek help? At what point do we draw the line? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, between my personal responsibility and protecting my own space and how I interact, especially on these online platforms. Draw that line so that I don't allow the perpetrators, give them room to continue, getting into my space and into my head, where I end up becoming a victim then. Where is that line?
I like what you've just asked, because it cuts to the meat of it. A lot of the situations that are there end up blaming the victim or passing the buck onto the victim. Why not stay offline? Why not keep safe? Why do they have to do that? It is never the victim's mistake being online. It is the perpetrator's problem setting those traps and harassing them online. We need to move away from the victim is the problem and they need to make sure they are safe. Yes, there is a bit of that needs to happen. But why is it that we are not castigating this individual who's actually harassing? Why is it that we are, and I believe to some extent we might have all been perpetrators of violence at some point or the other, because you have more than once laughed at an image or a video that was shared online. You might have even done worse, shared it. You might have commented, you might have followed.
That is violence?
We are encouraging it. We are not speaking up against it. We are talking about, when we talk about image-based violence, why did she share? Or why did he share his nudes? Why did he share? He was supposed not to. No, they shared it in an intimate setting for that person's consumption. For this to happen and to be shared online, now that is violence. This person should not have done that. It is always the perpetrator's mistake, never the victim. We never blame someone who has been raped for wearing a short skirt. It's never about the dressing. It's always about the rapist.
But you see, as we speak about online abuse, and I just want to look at it from a political angle, if you allow me. And why am I taking it political? Because where there does exist political goodwill, it is easy to deal with such issues, because then you would find that the relevant agencies have the political push to be able to do right. But unfortunately, we live in a country where we see these abuses again being perpetrated by the same politicians. And when you talk about the politicians that we talk about, you look at the following that they do have and people who consume their information. And you look at, like you say, some of us have participated in one way or the other unknowingly in perpetrating the same violence we like. You share, you comment, you laugh. Then how do we sit and look at this as not only just a personal problem, not only a Kenyan problem, but a global problem that needs to be addressed? Because we will sit and say alitumia mpoa wake akajam akashare, you know, alikuwa na mwenzake in an amazing place doing that thing, it was shared, and then we come say it was photoshopped. We laugh and we forget. How do we deal with that when it's coming from a space where people have following and they are in a political class who are supposed to be pushing to end this violence?
If we take that up, for me, I believe that the power is with us. They might be in that position, but remember, we are also the people who have given them power. So the thing that we need to do is to clearly focus on how do we start talking about this thing? How do we stop condoning? Because as a society, we have been saying it's our leader was posted, it's or wherever it is, in particular that media, we glorify that. And he has brought a very good thing. For the longest, the perpetrators have been encouraged, and it has been always the survivor's responsibility to protect themselves. So looking at it, and that's why we're having this conversation within this period, globally, collective responsibility. How are we going to work with the policymakers to ensure that people are held accountable? It doesn't matter your position. As a community, how are we going to raise our voice and say, no, when I see something about you, I don't repost it, I don't post it, or I don't start talking about it. I call it out and say, this is wrong. This should not have come in this process. Yes, our morals have failed us, I'll say that, as a nation, especially with our political class. That's my personal opinion. And I feel like there's a need of having a clear discussion to reinterrogate our moral values. How are we heading as a nation? And how are these leaders getting in that position? And that's why I say building the agency is very important. We have women leaders who sometimes, when you are working on ending femicide, doing all those campaigns, they were not there at forefront. You hear some comments and you're like, really? It's about the ages. How are these people raising? How are these people getting into those seats without the right capacity? And then how are we continuing to glorify them and giving them all these powers? Bora kiongozi amesema tunafuata. Bora sijui nani amepost, we are going to repost. We find it as a credible source. So I think it's really about moral. How do we go back and have those discussions? And then how do we work? Remember the three angle. We ensure that at all levels, all this, and then we have good laws that speaks about this. They can be penalized, but they are not being taken into account. How do we ensure that people are now brought down because of perpetuating this?
How do we, though? How do we? And I think that's the question here. That, unfortunately, I mean, look, there are too many examples in society, whether they're online, whether they're physical, of people who've gotten away with murder, literally. The very famous case of the young woman who went into a police station in Nairobi and went to report a case of sexual violence and then was abused by the officers on duty. That happens. There are people who have been abused and then go to court and or go to a chief to try and sort out the issue. And just like you said, Javan, that they'll say, okay, what can we do? Let's finish. Watch it to maliza hii kitu ya familia hapa katikati. Because what do we also know? That a lot of violence takes place between intimate partners or by a family member. So they say, let's not embarrass the family, without looking at the embarrassment that or the trauma that's causing to the person who has been defiled. And mind you, it's not just women or girls. We're now looking at abuse for men and boys. There are boys who grow up to be men who have been scarred for life because of things that happened to them when they were in school, and because we don't want to talk about it because we must be men. Those are the real conversations that we're refusing to have. That when somebody has been defiled, a mother, even when we can sit here, because let's get real, folks. We can talk about girls and women being abused, but when girls and women are being abused and they go to their aunties or mothers, what do the mothers ask them? What did you do? Number one. Number two, don't embarrass your husband or don't embarrass your boyfriend. They will not marry you tomorrow. Those are the things that are being said. How do we deal with those things? We have polycare centers that were set up. One Zipporah Nderito, who has won many awards as a policewoman, who made sure that these polycare centers were set up in police stations. But how are they being used today? Tell me who has been defiled in the last 10 years and their perpetrator has been jailed, brought to book, even when we know who those people are? When has it happened?
I can give you from a point of authority that there have been prosecutions very successfully. Yes, they are not as many as we would want, but they are there. We have pieces of legislation that work. The laws that we have are as good as the enforcement. We have the Sexual Offences Act, which is currently being reviewed, that speaks to rape, defilement, and such. And a lot of people have been sentenced, some to life, some to 20 years, some less, because of either rape, defilement, even attempted. So people have been prosecuted successfully. But the challenge is, the legal system is such that if you do not report, then the police cannot
do anything about it.
Yeah, they can't do anything about it. So, as had been mentioned earlier, if we have a system where people are not speaking about what is happening, everything is hush-hush, everything is hidden, even the neighbors don't want to be, and the term is the nosy neighbor bit. When you hear someone
Didn't want to be on the estate group.
Yeah, you don't want to be with that group. When the neighbor hears his or her neighbor screaming in the middle of the night, they say that is just their thing. Mambo ya watu wawili hauingili. When you see someone being violated and you keep quiet, even if it's happening next to you. We have different individuals. We have, if two people being violated, there are those that will keep quiet, no matter what.
Okay, so if I could interject, because
Yes.
I think to an extent, I guess for both of you, because we lament about things, and we do that often, even here in this room, but then we're also trying to look towards solutions. So what you've mentioned now, I know it's online, it's physical. Maybe the physical abuse far outweighs the online abuse, which to an extent is understandable. I don't know. But what do you do? There are people who we all have the conversations, and we know that there are people who scream every other night in the estate. They're being beaten up. We know it. You see the person the next day, and you can see the physical manifestation of this abuse. You are awake when this abuse is going on. What do you do?
Make a call.
Do you go knock on the door and say, "Excuse me, can you leave her alone?" Or can you stop this? Don't harass this man, or don't do this to this boy? What do we actually do?
Yes, do that. Do that. You can actually go bang on that door and say, "Stop, you're making noise." But we usually don't do that. We don't want to be the bad neighbor or the nosy neighbor. You can do that, and you need to do that, because what usually happens, and the annoying bit is, you will have this neighbor a few months later, data says women who were violated, intimate partner violence, usually leave 7 to 12 times before they actually leave. So they were slapped the very first time, they didn't leave. You heard them shouting, you didn't say anything. And then if it happens that they die, God forbid, then you will start speaking. You will say during the funeral. And we saw the signs. If you see the signs, say something, do something, go knock on that door. If you cannot knock on that door, then police have informants. Call the police. Tell them this is happening at this particular place, and the police will arrest you. If I'm fighting with you and we are friends and you're just fighting, you can take me to the police. You can go report. And if we are not, we both don't want to report, the police can still arrest us for a fray. There is always an option. It is just that we do not report.
Well, it's sad that you gave such a high number for Nairobi, because I assume that's the number of just the reported cases.
Just the reported cases,
Many
yes.
cases go unreported, undiscussed, unnoticed.
Yes.
But now, for those that are reported, and sometimes action is taken, especially when it comes to issues of, violation, the first thing you hear is that some people will plead psychiatric issues, or the judge will say we need to have a psychiatric assessment before we can offer a sentence, which sometimes, yes, there could be validity on that claim, but sometimes also something that, in my opinion, I think could be a scapegoat. finding a way not to assume full responsibility. So these perpetrators, in one way or the other, the cases go unprosecuted accordingly. How does that interfere with the workings of your working time to streamline between now empowering us as a civilian and working with the judiciary to ensure that there is, it is seamless, it flows? Because deterrent is what would work best. Once people understand that if these will be the consequences, psychologically aware or not, then be deterred from participating. How is that working for you?
Yeah.
The laws are there. I spoke of the Sexual Offences
Yes,
Act. We also have, when it comes to intimate partner violence, we have the PADVA, Protection Against Domestic Violence Act, which helps. We have the Children's Act. We have the cybersecurity legislation that might have issues, but we are happy about some very interesting parts in it that help to forestall and deal with violence and even provide avenues. So those are there. And I believe if we are able to share that information, then people will know you can actually report. Something can be done. Legally, you are innocent until proven guilty. They will have their day in court. And if the evidence bears for them to be prosecuted and sentenced, then that will happen. So we cannot take away from their rights as much as they are guilty, in our opinion.
Right.
It is for the judiciary to determine that. And if we are able to prove, that is why when they come to the facilities, we don't just provide care, we also link them to the support that they need. If it is sexual violence, we will advise them, don't wash your clothes. Keep them and preserve them as evidence for the police. When it comes to digital violence, we will talk about screenshots. The survivor might not know. They might also not know that they are able to report on the various tech platforms. So this is advice that they are given so that they are able to collect this evidence so that it is available to sustain a prosecution.
Maybe before you pose the question, I just wanted to say we have become enablers of GBV, and that is why he's speaking about us speaking it out, knocking that door and saying, hey, dude, stop what you are doing. This is not right. So that one person, you remember what we say, they normally say, everything goes bad, south, when we all stop talking about it. So when you stop talking about it, calling out your friends and telling them what you are doing is not right, that is a huge step. Another thing, yes, we are speaking about the policies. As practitioners in this field, we are having other engagements. Like now we have the Court Users Committee, where there's composition of the judiciary, the magistrates are there, we're having the civil society, the law enactors, the police, and all those coming to sit down in the same forum, telling us the challenges they are going through in the executing the laws, and also as giving the practical example from the field. So when we have those conversations, we have seen cases have started to move because we are able to take thought. It's more of an accountability space whereby everybody is accountable on the roles that they're supposed to do in all this chain. So I think accountability is key for us to ensure that the policies are being implemented, and that takes all the angles. And I want to point out, most of the CSO, including Care Kenya, we are embracing the localization agenda, whereby we are shifting the powers and resources to the community, because that is where the problems do happen, and those are the people who have the solution. Nice. So for us just to work as a connector there, to enable that the local actors are able now to call out this, to ask for the right measures to be taken, to demand accountability from the government, to demand the implementation of the policies. Because as an NGO sitting in Nairobi, I'll not be able to address a GBV case in Turkana, but we have an organization in Turkana that is doing that. How do we support that organization so that when the case goes to the chief says, I have nothing to do, I cannot do anything. I think these people should go back home and sort out this issue. Right. The NGO is there to hold them accountable and say, we must move forward with this.
So, unfortunately, when we talk of cases and victims, we are talking of things that have already happened. We are talking of people who have suffered.
Yes.
And others, unfortunately, they have died. Yes. Localization, uniting, intervention. Is there a way of marrying this to a more mitigative approach, a more preventive approach? You know, whether it is online, when I'm buying my teenage child a phone, they have some awareness on, you know, safeguards, how to use this and how to protect themselves and how to even raise the issue and flag some of these issues. Have you had opportunities perhaps with the other partners? Because we keep developing a curriculum. You know, we teach people life skills. And one of the life skills, in my opinion, was to be safety. And safety can be, you know, it is very broad. Is there an opportunity for you to have an input? Because in my opinion, all this violence narrows down to morality and values that we have as a society. How do we inculcate what you are pushing for, which is very good, into sort of a curriculum system, value system, whereby from a teenage age, I'm already knowing that behaving like this towards such a person in a society, or somebody behaving like this towards me, is tantamount to violence.
And that's why I mentioned about building the agency.
Right.
So that people are able to know this is safe, this is not safe. Those young children, the adolescents, you cannot deny them. Internet is here with us. It has penetrated so much in our spaces that we cannot live without it. So how do I make sure that my daughter is aware of these risks? As you're using this gadget, yes, as a parent, I have the parent control. But again, that time that I'm not able to follow, maybe I'm here, I'm not following what she's doing maybe at the moment. So how do I ensure that I have built her capacity as a young girl who is using that gadget to know that this is safe, this is not right, I should stop here, and I should be able to pinpoint, like to know these are the signs of not safe environment for me again, because when she's doing her online classes, how can she pinpoint that there's somebody doing this on me and I need to talk to my parent for support, I need to report, and so on. Again, there's another angle that is coming in here. How do we work with the tech people to ensure that they have provided those safety features whereby the kid can be able to point, even an adult can be able to report and get support from there. Just ensuring that their apps are very secure as an angle of protecting these people, as you also work towards ensuring that people know that these are not the right signs, this is not good, here I'm being harassed, I need to seek this support, where can I go? So there's a lot of different angles. That's why we need to unite collectively and work together to ensure that we make online safe for all of us.
You see, when you talk about online safety, it is critical because at times, if you just go deeper into the applications that we have today, there is even room for you to include text that you do not want to appear in your feed, including emojis. You can insert emojis that you don't want to appear. But as we talk about that, then there is the aspect that all these apps that you consume in the country are apps that are registered in other countries operating under their laws. In the country as we speak today, we use these apps with those laws. So then how do we push this conversation such that as much as we're consuming these laws, they are also operating and recognizing the laws that we have in the country, such that every app that is operating has a responsibility to meet our laws. It is happening in other countries. If you go to Europe, there is a Digital Services Act that controls how these apps do act. So are we looking at pushing for legislation that will make it easier for us to control what is happening online? Responsibility for these apps to make it easier for victims to report, to be able to also just pick up what would be violence, and them themselves banning someone from using their app, and even going further to reporting to relevant agencies to help in this fight, Javan.
Thank you very much. Part of the responsibility with reference to that is the governments. You mentioned acts in Europe, and most of the apps, the platforms on which our people engage, are domiciled in either Europe or America. So they speak about the terms of service and the legislation from their country of origin. But for them to be used here, we can actually do that. The government can do that, and they should do that. They are moving towards it slowly. We are part of the first, I think we're one of the fastest digitizing economies there is, but the legislation, the social norms are playing catch up. And we need to move with speed because this is happening and it is here. But part of the challenge is a lot of people do not know what you've just mentioned. You can actually determine what you can see and what you don't want to see on your particular interaction with the platform. People do not know where to report if they want something to be pulled down. That is information that is lacking. At the same time, you'll realize that on a lot of these platforms, even their lexicon, their terminology, what they consider to be violence is based on the Queen's English, as it were. It is not the local terminology. And a lot of the insults are actually in vernacular. So it is part of our responsibility to also build up the lexicon so that we will share, this is wrong. This is something that is happening. And as Joe had mentioned, when it comes to the prevention component, people need to be aware. And we...